What is up, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Dudes Who Bet Sports.
So you want to bet sports, but you need some advice on how to cash in big at a heck of a price. Well, if you want enough money to line your shorts, then you're in the right place. This is Dudes Who Bet Sports. Dudes Who Bet Sports, it's your favorite show. Dudes Who Bet Sports, where degenerates go. Dudes Who Bet Sports, time to change your approach with Aaron Halterman and his father, the coach. Let's ride.
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Dudes Who Bet Sports show. We're back for a Thursday, which means all kinds of previews and picks today for the big football games on tonight and Saturday and Sunday. We kind of digested what happened on Monday, what happened last week. So are you ready for week 2 NFL, week 3 college football?
Let's get it. It's going to be another tough one to get these games right, but it's always tough. So let's get on it and see what we can come up with this week.
Yeah, so this week's tough, and I think it's tough in college. I don't know. I had some success, or hopeful success, finding some NFL games. Before we get to it, I do want to mention something that we talked about Monday about USC and getting beat at home decisively against Stanford. USC has fired Clay Helton, so new coach coming to USC. They fired him after that win. We kind of talked about how, man, if I was a USC supporter, I would kind of hope that he would get fired. But he's officially gone. What were your thoughts on firing Helton just 2 games into the season?
Well, the first thing I thought of was you nailed it. You know, you said that as we were going through it.
Yep.
When you fire a coach this early in the season, you shouldn't have hired him back the year before.
Nope.
Because you don't fire somebody that you've got confidence in this early in the season. And it's a sure sign that they did not have a lot of confidence in him going into the year, or you wouldn't fire him this early. I mean, there's just 2 games in. Yeah, it's a terrible loss, but there's other problems going on there, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, but they've not liked him. He's been on the verge of getting fired. Last year was kind of a mirage. He went 5-1, but if you look, he won a lot of games right at the end. You know, they could have easily been 3-3, which would have got him fired. So he kind of bought a little time, and don't know a lot about the situation there, but I know they are underachieving as a program.
Well, and they have been for a long time now. Let's face it, Pete Carroll hadn't been there in a long, long time, and that was the last time they were good. So it definitely speaks to some bigger problems there at USC. It's a strange place. It's got such tradition. They usually are good. Sometimes they have been absolutely elite. They make some weird coaching hires, and I know you know about college football history more than I do, but it's been a weird situation. They've had some weird coaches there, haven't they?
They really have, and you would think that job would attract big-time names. You know, they're throwing Urban Meyers out there. It's about as big a name as you get. Bob Stoops, I've heard that one. If he takes that job, I'll fall over. I don't want to say I'll fall over dead. I might anyway, but I can't even imagine him being interested in that. Urban Meyers has flatly said no.
Yeah.
But they don't ever hire those kind of guys. That's the thing. And Clay Helton was not a big name at all. So yeah, it's you know, when they hired Pete Carroll, that was kind of a surprise.
You stole it out of my mouth. I was getting ready to say, people don't realize when USC hired Pete Carroll, he wasn't much. You know, He wasn't a household name, that's for sure. He had some success in New England, but he wasn't anything great.
Oh, no.
And he made his name at USC, but that was a weird hire. And if you read, I read an article one time about how Pete got hired. He basically, his daughter was on a visit to USC, and Pete Carroll was there with her, and the AD saw him and said, well, maybe we'll interview him and hire him. I mean, that's how weird it is.
Yeah, it is a strange situation out there. Kevin says, he here knows what he's doing. Well, we'll see. We don't know that yet. So it'll be interesting. They should be able to get who they want at USC, I would think. Now, another thing to consider is, and I don't know whether this weighs into it too much, some people don't want to move to Los Angeles. They don't want to live there. And that might have a little bit to do with it, but there's some big time names or qualified coaches right now that you would think would make the jump, like Matt Campbell at Iowa State,
Yeah.
at Cincinnati. There's some guys that you'd think would make that jump. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, I've heard that the Fickle from Cincinnati, it's his job to turn down, which you never know with these coaching rumors what's true and what's not. But it's a high profile job that it seems like somebody would take that thing. So interesting to see how that unfolds. They've got a head start on everybody else that's going to need a new coach. That's one thing, right? Nobody else has fired their coach yet.
That's right. They can hire somebody the minute the season's over.
Yeah, they could be talking to him right now and for months. So we'll see how all that plays out. All right. So one programming note before we start. I'm going to structure the show a little bit differently from here moving forward. So what we're going to do, we're still going to go through the big games of the weekend, both college and NFL. We're still going to do that. But then in the end, instead of doing a lock, an upset, and what we're most looking forward to, we're going to give you the 5 games that we believe are must-bet games of the week. It can be NFL or it could be college. So we're going to give you our top 5 plays of the weekend to kind of end it and say, okay, here's our thoughts on all these games. Now, here are the 5 that we're really focusing on. I think that'll add a little bit to it. And then another aspect of it, as we go along or when we get to that segment, if you're watching us live, go ahead and throw your top 5 in the comments, and we'll read through those as well and give you our opinion on those. So kind of makes us more centralized on what we really, really like, and also gets a little bit of fan interaction that we love on the show. So a little programming note there, but without further ado, let's kick it in to the games. I'm going to start in the NFL because we do have a game on Thursday night. So we'll start in the NFL, and we'll start with that Thursday night game. So the New York Giants travel to the nation's capital to take on the Washington football team. Both teams coming off a loss. Washington lost at home to the Chargers last week. The Giants lost at home to the Broncos. Washington, a 3.5-point favorite tonight. This seems like a battle of two teams that aren't very good. Where are you heading here?
Right here.
Yes.
Big time red flag. Wouldn't touch it. Washington lost the quarterback. So we don't know how, the backup, I don't know how he's going to play. The Giants were awful last week. I know you're done with them forever. I wouldn't play it at all. I got to be honest. I have no interest in this game whatsoever.
Yeah.
One good thing about it is if you start off 0-2 in this division, you still got a chance because this division is so bad. I'll take the Washington, but like I said, I wouldn't bet anything on this one.
This game, I bet they wish it wasn't on Thursday night because usually they try to get a decent Thursday night game on here. The problem with this game is I'm very unsure of who these teams are even after we saw them. Washington played pretty good. Backup quarterback Heineke played pretty good. Not bad, not great. They were against a Chargers team that I'm not sure what they are either. And Washington had a chance to win the game and got beat. I left that game thinking I'm really not sure what Washington is, but then I watched the Giants and it's like, God, they couldn't have looked any worse. The turnovers, Daniel Jones was awful. And Kevin says Daniel Jones is 4-0 against Washington. I think he's 4-1 after tonight. I'm going to take the Washington football team minus the 3.5. I'm 1,000% with you. Like I said a little earlier, we'll go through our top 5 plays of the week at the end of the show. This one's not going to be on it. Spoiler alert. I don't like this game at all. I'll read this because Dennis said that he had a stat for us on the Rocket Hour and he was going to save it for this show. Taylor Heineke in 9 games in 4 years, yards per game, he's averaged 65.4. What's the line? 248.50. So he's talking about Heineke's in-game passing yards, I guess is what you're talking about there. Yeah, I mean, that seems like a lot of yards. I don't think that the Washington quarterback is going to throw for 248 yards.
Well, the only thing is, in some of those games, he may not have played very much.
Right.
He may have only played a half, so that would be one thing. Because it was like last week. I don't know how much he played, but that would be the only hesitation I would have. But that is a lot of yards.
It's a lot of yard for a quarterback that has proven really nothing. And then Daniel Jones, I mean, even if his was at 248, I wouldn't take it because he's proven that he's terrible. So, yeah. Listen, the over-under on this game is 40.5, and that's about right. Like, these two teams are not good, and they don't score a lot. So, I think this might be a little bit of a snooze fest. But anyway, give me Washington and give Papa Dude Washington. All right, let's go on to Sunday in a game that I think is going to be a lot better. Buffalo Bills travel to Miami to take on the Miami Dolphins. Bills coming off a home loss to the Steelers, and the Dolphins a big win on the road at New England. The Bills are a 3.5-point favorite here. I bet people that have watched this show all the way through the first 7 or 8 weeks knows that I'm going to take Miami plus 3.5. They're my team. Really curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
Well, I went back and I looked at the stats of the Buffalo game. I watched some of it. They dominated the game. They're probably sitting around wondering, how'd we lose when you look at the stats? But a block punt was the key in that game that Pittsburgh turned into a touchdown. I think they bounce back this week, and I think they're going to win. I don't know whether they're going to cover or beat that. I think they're – wait a minute. They don't have to. I think they're going to win. I'm going to take – wait a minute. They are favored. I'm sorry. I'm confused here. I don't know that they'll win by 3.5. But I think they're going to win this game. I really do. I think Buffalo's better than Miami. I'll tell you what, though. If Miami gets this one, you talk about a leg up on that division, which is a pretty good division. First of all, Buffalo's going to be 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be 2-0, and you have won both games against division competition. Huge game for the Dolphins. I do like the Dolphins, but I'm going to go with Buffalo to cover and win this game.
It's a huge game for both teams, and you said it just right. Now, I know there's 17 games in an NFL season, but if you can get that leg up early, it really, really helps. It's tough to make up ground in the NFL if you get too far out of it. We'll talk about that with the Ravens a little bit later on in the show here, where that's a really – I know it's just one game, and it's a bad loss for the Ravens on Monday Night Football this week. So anyway, though, for this game, Miami kind of did exactly what I thought they would do week one. Go in there and win a really hard-fought, tough game. They needed some luck, and they got it. I think they play better at home. I think they can control the Bills' offense. I think it's going to be just like that New England game. I think it's going to be very close. And if it's going to be close, I want Miami plus the 3.5. Right. I love that it's 3.5 and not 2.5, because I could see a 24-21, 30-27 type of game here. But I'm taking my Dolphins. I'm gonna stick with the Dolphins bandwagon. I think still they're sneaky good, and I don't think the week one really changed my mind on that. So I'm going Miami. All right, let's travel now to Philadelphia.
Tell you what, you've coined a new phrase here that I'm going to keep going with, and that's that sneaky good.
Yep.
You said that, and so far you're right. So I think you got to keep with your guys.
And what I mean by that is, if you go up and you walk up to somebody who's a very casual fan and you go, hey, name 3 players on the Dolphins, I'm not sure people could do that. But the thing is, they're all good. They're just not – they don't have great players at any position, but every position is solid. Every position group is solid. They've got depth. I just really like Miami. But all right, let's travel on to Philadelphia now. The surprise team, one of the surprise teams, the NFL week one, Philadelphia Eagles. They go to Atlanta and they blow out the Falcons. Now they're at home taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who they were blowing out the Lions, and the Lions came back, but the Niners end up winning by 8. San Francisco on the road, a 3-point favorite here. Another tricky game, in my opinion. Where are you going with this one?
Well, I think San Francisco let off the gas a little bit early in that Detroit game. They thought they had that one won, and they let off a little. And Detroit made a good comeback. Philly was really good in Atlanta last week, and I thought that Atlanta would beat them. Jalen Hurts his statistics were off the charts, threw for a lot of yards, ran for a lot more. This is another huge game for the Eagles. They could go 2-0 in that division they're in. That's a big game for them.
Yep.
Second week in a row for San Francisco on the road on the East Coast. Dennis just posted that, and I'm going to go with him on this, that they stayed on the East Coast so they don't have to travel. And that's a good decision for them too. I think that's a long way across there to make 2 trips, and that cuts into your preparation time and a lot of stuff. So that was a good move for them. I think they're way better than the Eagles, and this is a green flag for me. I take the 49ers all day.
So, yeah, we'll see if this makes your top 5 plays at the end of the show here. It seems like it might with the green flag. We'll see. But, yeah, I'm going to go the Niners too. I'm not going to buy into the Eagles. I said that on the Monday show. I said, I'm going to pause. Let's let them prove it. This is a prove it game for them. I don't think the 49ers are, a top 3 or 4 team in the league, but I definitely think they're a playoff type team with playoff type players and talent. So this is a huge win. If the Eagles can get it, I don't think they will. I'm taking San Francisco minus the 3. And I'm with you. I watched a lot of that San Francisco Detroit game, and that looked like a total mismatch. And basically San Francisco couldn't get onside kicks or they would have won by double digits. So yeah. I'm taking San Francisco in this one. Let's move on to this one. I think this is a really, really tricky game. So Las Vegas Raiders coming off a huge win against the Broncos against the Ravens on Monday Night Football. They travel to Pittsburgh this week, short week, to take on the Steelers, who also got a huge win in Buffalo. The Steelers are 6-point favorites. I think that line is really, really good. Where are you leaning in this one? This looked like a toss-up to me.
Well, the Monday night thing kind of weighs into this, I think, a little bit, that Vegas had to play on Monday night. They were at home, so that's good. But they still got to travel across the country to Pittsburgh. And again, it cuts in on the preparation time. And if you got some guys nicked up, they don't have an extra day to kind of heal a little bit. And so it upsets the routine that goes on with these NFL teams. I like the Raiders a lot. I did not think Pittsburgh played that well last week. They didn't run the ball very well. Their offense was very stagnant. And like I said, I'm sure Buffalo is trying to figure out how they lost. I am not going – this is not one of my games that I picked, my best bets. But I like Vegas and the points in this one.
Well, I'm going to go opposite of you, but I'm with you. I don't have a flag, but I'm waving the red one here.
You want the red?
Yeah, put the red up. Thank you very much for that.
I'm trying.
I look at this game and it's just like, I don't know what Vegas really is, and I don't know what the Steelers are either. I debated this one for a long time. I'm going to go Pittsburgh minus the 6. I'm not sold on the Raiders. I think that was more about the Ravens blowing that game. I think it was more about the Ravens being a little overrated. And I think it was more about the Ravens having some injuries that really killed them in that Monday night game. Las Vegas got to travel all the way across the country, take on a much stiffer defense in Pittsburgh. That being said, I was not overly impressed with Pittsburgh week 1, but I think they're good enough to cover here. So I'm going to go Steelers minus the 6. It's a tough one. It's a tough game. I could see it going either way. And that's a good segue to the next game we're going to talk about, because the schizophrenic, I'll call them, Dallas Cowboys travel to the Los Angeles Chargers to take on the schizophrenic Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, like I mentioned earlier, they're coming off a win, and it was a pretty good one on the road at Washington. The Cowboys are coming off a loss. No loss is good, but it wasn't a bad loss. They played really, really well, had a chance to beat Tampa. Chargers are a 3.5-point favorite here against Dallas. This is another one I debated forever. Where are you going with this one?
This is a toughie. It was a good loss for Dallas. Bottom line, they're still 0-1. Doesn't matter if it was a bad loss or a good loss. I don't think Dallas should feel too bad. I think that's one that they weren't counting on winning against Tampa Bay. Here's the thing with the Cowboys. They got to win this game.
Yep.
These are the games. If you're going to be the best team in your division, you have to win these games. And it's not going to be easy. The Chargers are improved. Their quarterback is playing very, very well. They're tough to beat at home. I think this is their first game in the new stadium. Isn't that correct? I believe.
First game with fans. Yeah.
First game with fans.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I don't know how much fan support they have. Curtis
Not
was
much.
saying, and Curtis says, I saw a while ago, he put it's a great place to live, Los Angeles. I would disagree with you there, Curtis. You ever lived anywhere else? Anyway.
He's lived in Michigan.
Okay, well, anyway, I guess he likes it out there. I there's no way I would live in LA, but I'm pretty old. Anyway, this is definite for me. How come my flags aren't working? Anyway, definitely a red flag for me. I, like you, went around and around. I'm going to the Chargers are 3.5.
Yeah, Chargers are 3.5-point favorites.
I'm going to go with Dallas.
Yeah, me too. I'm going with Dallas too. Yeah, and Samich says it'll be 80% Cowboy fans, 20% Chargers fans.
Wow,
that's how it's been when they were playing in the old soccer stadium. So
yeah,
I think it's a home game for Dallas. I hate to pick them because they're just so unreliable, but they should win this game. It's just that simple. They really should win this game.
They got better players.
I think they do too. So, yeah, I'm going to go Dallas plus the 3.5. I like that they're an underdog here. Wouldn't take them as a favorite. Do like the underdog.
The only thing is they keep getting people hurt on defense.
Yeah, but the defense is a weakness anyway. So I mean, I would rather have somebody on the defense hurt than Dak. Let's put it that way.
Definitely. And
so
their receivers, God, you would think they could break some stuff on the Chargers.
In sports betting, well, in any betting really, sometimes you just have to logically look at something, right? And you say if you can go on a Thursday night with Tampa Bay raising the Super Bowl banner and cover there, you should be able to cover here against the Chargers in a stadium where you're going to have, as Samich and Magic both have said, 80% of your fans. So logically, the Cowboys should cover this game. But Kevin O says, Gregory and Lawrence out. It's Herbert time, and it might be, but the Cowboys still should be able to put points on the board and keep this close enough to cover the 3.5. I thought this was an interesting question. Do you feel like Hard Knocks, and Hard Knocks, Dallas was on Hard Knocks this year, has a negative effect on a team when it's early in the season? You've coached for many years. Let's just kind of ask it like this. Outside distractions, does it have an effect on a team?
I think it does. I would never want my team to be on Hard Knocks. They play for the camera. It is a distraction. They're always around wherever you're at. You're in the cafeteria, you're in the locker room, you're out on the practice field, you're signing autographs, whatever. Those cameras are right there. And I do think it's a distraction. I don't know by this time it makes any difference once the game starts. I don't know. I think it does in the preseason though, with your focus and things like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it if it was me.
If I had if I was wanting to drum up some attention for my, for the franchise, whatever, something like that, and that exposure would help, and you talk to management about that. And if they would say, hey, we need to have a little bit of some exposure to get our fan base going, you might have to go along with that.
Yeah. Well, the Dallas Cowboys certainly don't need that. So
no,
I think they just like the attention.
And here's another thing. You're saying there's going to be 80% Dallas fans. If this game was in Dallas, I'd be feeling the same way.
Sure.
They lose these kind of games in Dallas too. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
These are the classic games that make the Cowboys what they've been the last few years, where they just can't get over the hump because this is a big game that they can win, and they haven't been able to do it. Well, they looked really good week one. I can't get over that. And with Dak back, I got to take him. But listen, I debated that one for a while. I debated this one maybe a second. Okay, so the big Sunday night game, it's kind of the game of the week. Kansas City travels to Baltimore. Of course, Kansas City beats the Browns 33-29, a really good game. And Baltimore loses a heartbreaker in Las Vegas. Listen, Kansas City has had the Ravens number here lately. 3.5-point favorite for the Chiefs. Where are you leaning here?
boy, I tell you talk about a tough first two games for the Chiefs. They got the Browns, and then they got to go into Baltimore to play the Ravens. That's a pretty tough first two games. Here's the thing I looked at in this one. When you play the Chiefs, you got to score points. You have to. You got to match them.
Yep.
I don't know that the Ravens can do that. I just don't think they have a dynamic enough offense. I don't think their defense can stop the Chiefs enough either. The other thing is you got to get a pass rush against Mahomes. And you got to keep him in the pocket. Now, you tell me how you do that. It's pretty hard. I mean, if a lot of times teams can get on him, but he escapes and off he goes for 30 yards. And there's nothing worse when you're almost to the quarterback, you don't get him, and then he breaks a play for 30 yards. You know, you played good defense, you covered downfield, you got all the receivers covered, and there he goes and scrambles for 30 yards. And he does that all the time.
Yep.
So I didn't hesitate at this one at all. Baltimore, again, is coming off the Monday night game. Again, the preparation thing. They were in Vegas, had travel time to get back home. And when you play the Chiefs, you need all the preparation you can get. And they didn't get it. Historically, Kansas City has blown them out. I'm with the Chiefs all day long to cover this one.
Yeah, it's just the Ravens have the injuries to the running backs, and that it's not a good situation for them. They really need to win this game, but I just don't think they're going to do it. Dennis's comment is, I know this is going to be in my top 5 for sure. I just don't know if it'll be KC minus the 3.5 or over 54.5 for the total. I think both are pretty good bets there, Dennis. You know the Chiefs are going to score. They have shredded this Baltimore defense multiple times when Mahomes has been there. And the Ravens are going to get some points on the board. I just don't think it'll be very many. But they're probably going to score enough to get to the over 54.5. Yeah, stay tuned into the show, but I think you can tell by my voice, the Chiefs will probably be in my top 5 at the end of the show because there's no excuse for them not to cover this game. They'll have to play poor not to. I think they're going to – I think it might get ugly in Baltimore. I really do. So that'll do it for the NFL. We'll cover the Monday Night Football game on our Monday show. But that'll do it for our NFL picks. But now let's get to college and look at this. A game we will be there live and in person to see. An old rivalry from the Big 8 and then the Big 12, and now no longer. But it's renewed on Saturday at 11 a.m. in Norman. Nebraska at 2-1. They've won 2 in a row against pretty easy teams after getting upset by Illinois. They traveled to OU to take on Oklahoma, 2-0. Looked better last week, but that doesn't really count. It wasn't against anything. OU, a 22-point favorite coming into this one.
My turn?
Your turn.
Well, I'm going to bore all you guys a little bit with some history because I'm the only one old enough to remember when this was the game back in the 70s and 80s. And this is the 50th anniversary of the game of the century in 1971, which I don't know how many of our viewers were even alive in 1971, but I was, and I remember this like it was yesterday. A little bit of a history here. OU was they dominated college football in the 50s. They dropped a little bit in the 60s. They didn't drop off the face of the earth, but they weren't real good, and they hadn't been very, very good. And going into the 1970 season, their head coach was Chuck Fairbanks, and they were the coaching staff was in some trouble. And they started off the year 2-2, which you don't do at Oklahoma, even if you're shitty. You don't go 2-2
right.
at Oklahoma. And they thought they were going to get fired. And Barry Switzer was on that staff. There was a Jimmy Johnson was on that staff, and they thought they were going to get fired. And the Texas game was coming up, and Texas was number 1 in the country. And so they had an off week. They had 2 weeks to get ready for Texas. They had a great quarterback at OU named Jack Mildren. And Jack Mildren was one of the most heavily recruited players ever to come out of the state of Texas. And OU got him. But they were in the wrong scheme. They were running the veer. And at this time, the wishbone was in its infancy, and not very many teams were running the wishbone. And most of you guys don't even know what the hell the wishbone is because it hasn't been around for a long time. But it was an option-oriented offense. So I'm trying to make this story as short as I can, but I can't. Anyway, Switzer was the offensive coordinator at OU. And he went to Chuck Fairbanks, and he said, Chuck, we're in the wrong offense. We got to switch to the wishbone. and Texas was running the wishbone. And they were really the only team in the country that was having a lot of success with it, but they were dominating college football at that time. Switzer had studied it a little bit and said, we got the perfect personnel to do it. We got to switch. We're going to get our ass fired anyway. And that's exactly the way Switzer talks. We're going to get our ass fired anyway. What do we got to lose? And Fairbanks went ahead and said, yeah, we got to do it. So I'd like to say that they switched to the wishbone, and in 2 weeks they went down and beat Texas, but they didn't. They lost 41-9. They got killed. But they did move the ball a little bit against a great Texas defense. So they went ahead and finished out the rest of the season. And one of the big games down that stretch was they got behind up at Iowa State 28-0. And they came back and won that game with the wishbone. And that's when they began to believe in it. The only game they lost the rest of the year, they went to Nebraska. And Nebraska was great and won the national championship that year in 1970. And they beat OU 28-21. And so OU was very competitive. Now we're getting to 1971. OU had an entire offseason to get the wishbone down to perfection. And they set offensive records rushing the ball that probably will never be broken with that wishbone offense. So that led up to the game of the century against Nebraska. And how many times have we seen these high-profile games not amount to anything? You know, we're looking forward to them, and it's a blowout or it's boring or whatever. This one was back and forth all day long. It was freezing cold in Norman, Oklahoma. The wind was blowing. It was perfect football weather. I never will forget. I jumped so high one point in that game. I came down on my foot and about broke my big toe. We're all sitting around waiting for Thanksgiving dinner until this game was over. It was on Thanksgiving Day. It was incredible. The only bad news was we lost, but at the same time, what a football game it was. Nebraska won right at the last 35-31, and it was a great game. And then for the next 20 years, Oklahoma and Nebraska played on Thanksgiving weekend every year. And it usually would decide, well, it didn't usually. It always decided the Big 8 at that time championship and who would go to the Orange Bowl. And a lot of times it would decide who would win the national championship. And it was just something else. So that's why this game means something to us old timers, and it should mean something to the nation. It's kind of a renewal of that classic rivalry that hasn't been around for a while.
Yeah, it really hasn't been relevant. In 2001 was the last time it was really a big game nationally. And in 2000, it was number 1 versus number 2 in Norman. And they called that, game of the century 2. And OU was able to win that game. It's a far cry from it now. And that's what's sad about it. Nebraska has just dropped off the face of the map. And now we're here with this. Nebraska at least has won a couple of games in a row, has some momentum. It's just a far cry from what it was. And even, you don't even have to be, Papa Dude age. You can be my age and remember great OU Nebraska games as well. It wasn't that long ago. These two teams played for the Big 12 championship game, and even though Nebraska wasn't a powerhouse, they were still good enough to make that game. As far as this one goes, it has a blowout written all over it, in my opinion. I think OU, because of the rivalry, because they're making a huge deal about it being the 50th anniversary of that game of the century, I think OU's locked in for this one, and I think they cover the 22. So as far as this game this year, what do you think is going to happen in Norman on Saturday?
Not so fast. Lee Corso,
Yep.
I don't know what Oklahoma has. They've proven absolutely nothing to me. And until they do, I'm not sold on them at all. I don't like the quarterback. I do not trust the quarterback. I can see them choking somewhat in this game. I really can. I'm not high on him. Nebraska's defense is not bad. And OU's got to run the ball. They have to. That sets up everything else they do. And they've not proven to me they can do it. I am going to take Nebraska and the points. I'm not saying I would bet it, but I'm going to do that. I think the game's closer than people think. I think OU wins 38-17. That's not 22. That's 21.
There you go. Yeah. So they're going to cover. Okay. So they're going to cover, or they're not going to cover. They're going to win by 21. Not 22 after we talked up Nebraska there. I like it. All right. Well,
Oh, that's pretty good for Nebraska, don't you think?
well, it would be a good showing for them. And again, that just shows you after the stories that you told how far they've dropped that we're saying, hey, if they play Oklahoma within 21 points, it's been a good game for them. So that's the state of Nebraska football right now. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun to see those two uniforms on the field together again. I don't know what the game's going to be like as far as being competitive. We'll see. You think Nebraska covers. I think OU covers. All right, let's move on to a game that should be a little bit more competitive. Well, I don't know. Maybe you don't think so. Cincinnati, they go on the road to Indiana. Indiana, of course, losing week 1 at Iowa. They played a little bit better last week and got a win over Idaho. Cincinnati 2-0. They're kind of the mid-major darling coming into this game. Tricky game, though, going to Bloomington. So where are you leaning in this one?
Well, I've got Cincinnati ranked number 8 in my top 25, so I've got to really like them in this game. When you look at the Cincinnati schedule, they have this game and then I got the next one. They're humongous games for the Bearcats. They've kind of went through the motions the first 2 weeks, and they've won easily. They have tremendous talent. They went toe-to-toe with Georgia last year in the bowl game. They've got the players. I think they're going to be sky high and ready for this game. I don't think Indiana's very good. They were everybody's darlings last year. They went 6-2, and that's good. And we need teams to come out of nowhere in college football, but they didn't really play anybody. So I like Cincinnati to cover this easy.
I think they're going to as well. And I think you made the big point that I like to think of this game. When you're a mid-major and you schedule these games like at Indiana, and then I think they have a week off, and then they go to Notre Dame, you circle them and you focus on them, and you really can put everything you've got into them, because there's other weeks where you've got games where you really don't have to prepare quite as hard. This is certainly one they've got scheduled that they got to win, that they've had circled. So I think Cincinnati does cover. Dennis disagrees. He's got Indiana +4. The line right now 3.5, but it has been at 4. I've seen even 4.5 at some books. So, but I'm with you. I'm going to take the Bearcats. I'm not quite as high on the Bearcats as you are, but I do think they come in to Indiana and cover this game. All right, let's move on to one of your darlings from week 1, Virginia Tech. They upset North Carolina in a game that was your dog of the week, was Virginia Tech. Now they go on the road. Virginia Tech 2-0. They go on the road to West Virginia. West Virginia is 1-1. Their loss came to Maryland in a competitive game. West Virginia, 2.5-point favorite, despite the fact that Virginia Tech is the number 15 ranked team in the country. Are you going to stick with your Hokies, or are you turning to the Mountaineers?
This is the toughest game I've handicapped all week. I have really struggled with this one. You can't look at the stats of West Virginia because they beat Long Island, I think it was last week.
Listen, when I saw that, I thought, Long Island, that's one I've never seen.
No, I didn't know Long Island had a football team. I knew they had a basketball team, but I didn't know they had a football team. So the stats, when you look at the stats of West Virginia, they're skewed because you can't go by that. It's like looking at Oklahoma stats. They're totally skewed. Virginia Tech they should have lost the game to North Carolina. They didn't do much. And then they came back and beat a decent, Middle Tennessee. I mean, they're not anything to write home about. I don't know how good West Virginia is. I do know this. They play extremely well at home. They're tough to beat in Morgantown. When I handicapped this, I thought the line was 3.5, and it's down to 2.5 now.
Yep.
And that makes a little bit of a difference. I don't know which way to lean on this at all. So don't take anything that I'm saying into consideration here. I'm baffled by this one. I'm going to take the Hokies.
I am going to take West Virginia. And here's why. I'm not really high on either one of these teams. I feel like you're right. Virginia Tech really should have. I mean, they tried. I'm not going to say they should have lost against North Carolina, but they tried to lose that game multiple ways, and North Carolina wouldn't take it. I don't think Virginia Tech's that good. And I think if they would have lost that game, we would see a completely different line for
Yes.
this, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to try to take advantage of that. I'm going West Virginia minus the 2.5. I'm not confident. The red flag is out for me on this one because this is a game. I'm just not sure who either one of these teams are. This early in the season, it's really tough to get a read because we don't know what North Carolina really is yet either, and West Virginia lost to Maryland. On paper, that doesn't look bad, but we don't know what Maryland is either. So these are just like, I call them tweener teams. They're just kind of in between. You don't really know what they are. We might find out a little more about each of these teams after this game. So I'm going to go West Virginia, though, minus a 2.5. I'll stick with them. All right, let's move on to this Miami team is interesting every week, right? So last week they win, but they do not cover against Appalachian State. And in the first week, they get blown out by Alabama. This week, Michigan State comes to town, so it should be another competitive game for Miami. Michigan State's 2-0, a very impressive win on the opening week against Northwestern on the road. 6-point favorite for Miami. This is another tough one, man. What do you think about this one?
Very tough again. I guarantee you that Miami coaching staff took a big sigh of relief when that Appalachian State game was over. When you're a coach and you came off a huge game against Alabama and you peed down your leg, you played not very well, and you anticipated you were going to be better than that, and you got killed. You got to come back the next week and you got to get those kids ready to go again. And when they see Appalachian State, even though you're sitting there preaching to them, guys, this is a good team. Don't look at the name of this team. This team is good.
Yep.
They traditionally have played teams like you very close. You just can't get them ready mentally. It's just a very difficult thing to do. So they were thrilled to win that game any old way they could. Now you got a different thing coming in here with Michigan State. Okay, hey guys, they play in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's pretty good. They've been good over the years. Okay, they know who this is.
Yep.
So I think you're going to see the real Miami come out one way or the other in this one. If they're pretty good, I think we're going to see it. We don't know yet for sure on Michigan State. They beat Northwestern, but Northwestern doesn't appear to be much at this point. I'm going to take Miami to cover.
I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to take Michigan State and take the 6 points here. I think it's a toss-up game as far as the point spread goes. I think it could go either way. I think Michigan State's going to be able to line up and run the ball on Miami, and I think that's going to be the key to keeping this thing close, keeping it a 4-quarter game, and ultimately Michigan State covers this one. If I had to just pick a winner, I think it's going to be pretty similar to last week. I think Miami's going to win, and it might be really, really late when they pull ahead. I think it's a 3-point game one way or the other. So if I think that, I got to go Michigan State and take the 6 points here. Again, this is another one just not real confident on because you just don't know what these teams are quite yet. And Kevin O says he thinks Northwestern's way down this year. They didn't play very well week 2 either. Talking about Northwestern, they did win, but it wasn't really a very good game against a much lesser opponent. You might be right. The one thing I'll say, and I say this sometimes in horse racing, when a horse will beat a bad field, but they beat them by 5-6 lengths and it wasn't competitive. I'll say the same thing for Michigan State. Northwestern may not be very good, but it wasn't a competitive game. Michigan State dominated. So I'll take Michigan State plus the 6 here. I think they get it done. But it's debatable for sure. I missed this comment from Dennis. I heard a story at the bar last night. Some guy said, don't ever go to West Virginia. Last time he was there, an 80-year-old grandma screaming at the top of her lungs, F Louisville. Well, I think that could happen everywhere, Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's just West Virginia.
No.
But they're pretty wild up there, and I don't think they're very friendly to the road team. So,
well, I want to know if the grandma had overalls on.
Yeah. Well, or did she burn her couch in her front yard? That's another Morgantown tradition. They burn couches. It's a wacky place. It's a wacky place. Thankfully, OU never lost up there I guess we'll have to go up there one or two more times before we're out of there, but it's definitely a different place for sure. And it can really get rocking at Morgantown if it's going well for the Mountaineers. So, all right, let's turn our attentions to another place where it's going to be rocking. That's the Swamp in Gainesville, Florida, as the Florida Gators welcome the number one team of the nation, Alabama Crimson Tide, coming off an easy win against a terrible Mercer team that doesn't really count that one, but great win over Miami week 1. First true road game for the Crimson Tide. Can they cover this 14.5 point spread in Florida?
Well, I think it's going to take a swamp, literally, to keep them from covering this. Florida better hope a hurricane comes through there or something, a thunderstorm of some kind. I don't think Alabama has a problem here. We don't know about Florida. At this point, I think they've played every rinky-dink Florida team that in the state of Florida, Florida International and South Florida, I think. I think they got Northeast Florida on the schedule next week. Here's another thing that I was looking up. They got 2 quarterbacks. They're using a 2 quarterback system, which historically has never really panned out. And they still haven't settled on one. I've learned my lesson, as Samich says. I've learned my lesson with Alabama. There's no way I'm picking against them until they prove me otherwise. So I'm going Alabama in this one.
Yeah, Bama first half still the best bet in sports, Samich says, and it's just the stats don't lie. They get out ahead and they dominate early. I'm with you. I think Alabama covers here, and I think the biggest thing is, I don't think Florida's very good.
No.
Okay. And I think this line should be a lot bigger. I think, and Samich, I'm glad you threw that in. I was looking for 21-5 over the last 2 years in their first half lines. They've covered them. So that's unbelievable. I think they'll be 22-5 after this game. Only way Dennis says the only way Bama doesn't cover is because they are up by 17 or 21 and they let off in the fourth quarter.
A good point.
It could happen. I'm projecting they're up by like 35 in the fourth quarter. That's why I don't think we're going to have that backdoor cover. I think they jump out all over them. Florida, like I said, I think offensively, I don't think they'll be able to move the ball much. And that's a bad sign if that happens against Alabama.
Yeah. The other thing is they were awful on defense last year. Florida was.
Yeah.
They weren't any good on defense. Alabama should roll them. Now, I hope we come on here Monday and we're eating crow and we're wrong. Yeah. I will tell you that, but I don't think we are.
No, I don't think we are either. I think this game just comes down to the fact Alabama is a much better team than Florida. I think that 14.5 is because it's at Florida and it's a tough place to play, but it won't be tough enough to keep it close, I don't think. All right, let's go to a game here that should be much, much more competitive and a tricky game as well. Auburn Tigers travel to University Park to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Both teams are 2-0. I read somewhere Auburn's first road game to a Big Ten school since 1931. I mean, that's unbelievable. All right, Auburn, Penn State 5-point favorite. Where are you going with this one?
Well, I also heard a statistic on the radio this morning, and I just heard it on the radio, so I'm and these guys are pretty good. I was listening to, so I'm assuming it's right. They've only won. The last time they beat a ranked team in a non-conference game on the road was 1984.
Wow.
And I don't know how many non-conference games they've had against ranked teams, over the years. We know absolutely nothing about Auburn. Nothing. They're averaging 61 points a game, but they've played Akron, and I forget who was the other one, South Alabama or Alabama. I don't know who it was.
Yeah, it was an FCS school.
Yeah, they were awful too. And so we don't know. We know who their quarterback is. He's been up and down over the years. His name's Bo Nix. He's had some good games and he's had some bad games. We have a little bit more of a line on Penn State. We know what they are too. They went to Wisconsin and they beat a good Wisconsin team in Madison. Not easy to do. came back and had a so-so game against Ball State, but Ball State's pretty good, and they beat them easily. So we know what they are. Here's the problem. We also know Penn State's not going to score much.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't score much. So that's going to keep this game close, I think, and that's why that line's at 5. This is a tough game to pick. I wouldn't bet a nickel on this. I just wouldn't bet them. I got to go with Penn State because we know what they are, and we don't know what Auburn is.
Yeah, I agree. And Samich asks, isn't this the whiteout this week? And yes, it is.
Oh,
So,
yes.
a whiteout at Penn State at night. And Kevin O said it's hard to beat Penn State at night at Happy Valley. I agree. Yeah, it's kind of another horse racing term that we use sometimes, the knowns versus the unknowns. I feel like we've got a really good idea of what Penn State is. You know, they went to a very good Wisconsin team and won. And so now they're at home against an Auburn team that we kind of know that they're not a top SEC school. I mean, it would be shocking if they were like a top 3 or 4 SEC schools. So I'll call them upper to mid pack SEC school, go on the road and beat one of the better Big Ten schools. I think the answer is no. I'm going to take Penn State minus the 5 here. Yeah, I mean, I debated for a while, but this one I got to quicker than some of the other ones that we've been saying are tough or toss-ups. I think Penn State gets a job done here.
The only tricky thing is Penn State doesn't score much.
You know, they don't, but you know, they beat Wisconsin 16-10.
Yeah.
So they were underdogs there, but say they were 5-point favorites in that game. They scored 16 and they still covered. And Wisconsin's not bad.
No, they're not. But I think Auburn might be a little better offensively than. It's just a tough. It's a tough early season game to pick because we don't really know what Auburn is.
Yeah, and Dennis says he thinks the under. It's a good spot for the under. The over under is 53 points. I thought that was kind of high for this.
Yeah, high. That's because Auburn's averaging 60 a game, probably.
Right.
But that's a lot of schools would be averaging 60 a game with the opponents they played.
Correct. Yes. And Scott Sneed said Bo Nix on the road. That's all you need to know. White out on Saturday night in Happy Valley. Yeah. Okay. Penn State, you're talking me into it more and more. Maybe I should add this to my 5. I don't know. I got a couple of seconds, but we got one more game. And we'll go to the top 5 plays of the day for us. All right, last game we're going to talk about for college football. And here's your boys, the BYU Cougars. They're underdogs at home again, even after upsetting Utah last week. Arizona State Sun Devils come into town. It's another it's a ranked Sun Devils versus now ranked BYU Cougars. 4-point underdogs for BYU. I think I know where you're going, but make it official.
Well, I don't like Arizona State that well.
I don't either.
I didn't like them in the preseason poll.
No.
Not a huge fan of their coach. I think he's funny. He says some funny stuff, but I don't, you know, I'm just not a huge fan of them. They have been very unimpressive in their first 2 games. Now, again, they could be sleepwalking. You know, they're going to be ready for this one. They're going to be tuned in, especially since BYU beat Utah. That got their attention. BYU got into the top 25. So they've got Arizona State's full attention. And you got to take that in consideration. But the Cougars in Provo, Utah are pretty hard to beat. And I was very impressed with them last week. Yep, I'm going with the Cougars all the way.
Does this not feel like Groundhog's Day a little bit?
A little.
BYU on the home or at home at night, hosting a ranked opponent out of the Pac-12. I think it's the same thing. Utah went in there, and that game wasn't all that competitive. BYU pretty much had control of the game almost for the whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, we got 7 points last week. Now we're getting 4, but I still think BYU plus the 4 makes sense here. And I'm not going to be shocked at all if they win this game outright.
I think BYU should be a 4-point favorite. That's my opinion.
Listen, I think Utah's better than Arizona State. So, yeah, I was shocked by this line. I thought it would be more along the lines of, 1.5, 2 points one way or the other. And when I saw BYU +4, I'm hopping on it again. Get on that Mormon train, I guess. We're going to stay on it for another week. Here's a good point. No letdown worries after beating a rival. No, because they're playing Arizona State. Let's say there's just because they're just right above here with a team like Tulane, right? Let's say Tulane was coming in there. I would almost be worried about a letdown there. But I think if hosting another Pac-12 team at night on your home field, I don't think they're letting down this week. I think they'll be ready. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that now, if they had to go down to Arizona State, that would be a different.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be riding the high off that. I know where you're coming from, Mike. As a coach, you really worry about that. But having a ranked opponent coming in, I think will get them ready to go. Yeah,
and I think especially in college, you worry about it a lot, right? Like, for example, just to throw one out there, what about let me find Arkansas. Where are they?
Well, I know.
Okay. Arkansas is a 23.5-point favorite at home against Georgia Southern, right? Arkansas is coming off the biggest program win they've had in a long time. That's one where I'm not saying Arkansas could get upset, but I don't know if they're going to cover that.
True.
That's one I would be worried about.
Exactly.
So you got a letdown, and you got the fact that Arkansas probably gained a few points in that spread because of the win. And we're still not quite sure if Arkansas is good or they're just better than last year, but still not great. I would be worried about them covering. That's a letdown type game for me.
Well, the thing that kept me away from that one is Georgia Southern has just been horrid the first 2 weeks.
That's a good point. They have not been good. And that could be even worse for Arkansas letting down.
Yeah, I could see them struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
But I stayed away from it simply because I didn't think Georgia Southern had played well enough to warrant a bet from me.
Yeah. So in my top 5 that we're going to talk about next, I thought for sure, well, I may monkey with putting them in there, but I thought I just don't want to depend on a team that bad that's been that bad. So I didn't do it. All right, here we go. The news segment. Like I said, we went over all the games. Now here are the 5 must plays of the weekend for both of us. We're going to start with yours. And by the way, the number 1 ranked game that we'll have on this, that'll be our lock of the week. So the lock of the week for Papa Dude is Cincinnati. So just quickly kind of go over your 5 here and why you picked these 5 out.
Well, Cincinnati gets the green flag. No doubt about it. They get the green flag. If I could ever figure out how to put it up there, there we go. They get the green flag. For me, they're my lock of the week. I'm high on them. I think they're ready for this game. I'm not high on Indiana. If I lose, I lose. But that's the one that I like the best. My second pick, we've already talked about the Chiefs. Probably no reason to go over that anymore. And the Niners also, and we talked about BYU.
Yeah.
My upset special is number 5. I was going to take BYU, but anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute when we get to yours. San Diego State is +9, and Utah is coming in there. Here's the deal. Here's the angle I'm playing. Utah is coming off the rivalry game with BYU, where they got thumped. This is a tough trip to San Diego State. I love the 9 points. San Diego State's not bad. They went to Tucson and thumped Arizona, which I know they're not very good, but still 38-14. I love this 9 points. I think Utah might win, but I don't think they're going to cover 9. So that's my upset special of the week. The Aztecs over the Utes.
That's right. San Diego trying to make it 3-0. I think it's a good one. I debated that one for a little bit and just decided to go elsewhere.
One more too.
Throw out your other one that you were debating and put on there.
I like North Carolina this week over Virginia. I'm not high on North Carolina, but they should have beat Virginia Tech. They came back and played real well last week against Georgia State, which is they're not any good. But North Carolina has ability to score. Even though they didn't against the Hokies, they turned it over and made some mistakes. They've got a good quarterback. The line is 8, I believe. I think they're going to cover that. I'm not that high on Virginia. So I like that game in Chapel Hill, too. That's one I almost threw in there and took out the one of the pro games.
Yeah, I think North Carolina, they're another one that falls into that category of I just don't know what they are yet. So I'm debating it, but I didn't go with them. All right, so let's go with mine. I locked, and you know what? I should, since there's two Arizonas. There's Arizona, the college, and the pro.
Oh, yeah.
So let me write which Arizona there real quick. Okay, now put the. So I've got the Arizona Cardinals -3.5. They take on the Vikings, and it's at Arizona, and that just logically just seems like they ought to cover that, right? Minnesota coming off a loss. Arizona coming off a big win at Tennessee. I mean, I feel like they should cover that game pretty easily. I was shocked that it was 3.5. I think Arizona kind of starts to prove who they are more and more as the weeks go on here, and this is a good matchup for them. Kansas City -3.5. We talked about it. I just think logically they should win that game pretty easily. BYU +4. We went over that one. We also went over the last two as well. The Miami Dolphins +3.5. I'm riding that Miami train until it bucks me off. I think they're going to be very competitive and keep that close, if not upset a pretty good Buffalo team. And then Alabama, I changed this at the end. I had the Rams -3.5, and I thought, no, I'm going to go Alabama -14.5. It was my fifth one. I just think it makes sense. The Rams. They're going to Indianapolis. I think they'll cover that, but it is a long trip, and sometimes those West Coast teams kind of struggle early out of the gates. So those are my 5 there. Hopefully we can get those in. And then we also have one from Dennis. He says the Browns -6.5 for the first half. The Rams -4. So it's funny. I didn't see that comment, Dennis, but we were kind of both on the Rams there for a minute. The Broncos, Jags under 45, Auburn, Penn State under 53, and whichever I decide to take here, whether it be KC and the Ravens over 54.5 or Kansas City -3.5. So that's Dennis's top 5. Quickly look at this. What do you think about the Browns? Let's talk about them a minute. So they're 12.5-point favorites. First half is -6.5. What do you think of that Browns bet?
That would be the only one of the 5 that I think might be a little risky.
Really?
Well, what exactly does that mean?
Well, it means they have to be ahead by 7 or more at the half.
No, I think I see. Okay. I could see Houston giving them a little bit of trouble. I love the Rams pick. I thought you were going to pick the Rams, or I might have put that in my top 5. I like that one. The under 45 Broncos and Jags.
Yeah,
that's really good. We talked about the Auburn Penn State under 53. That's really good too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're in really pretty good shape there, Dennis. The only one I think is a little shaky is the Browns, but
well, okay, I'm gonna tell you why I like the Browns one. He did the first half and not the whole game, because that's a big spread. They're like 12.5-point favorites, but that first half, it really minimizes, what you have to cover. So yeah, Samich says because you're a homer. No, I'm saying at 12.5, I might not take the Browns.
I like that, Dennis. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. Scott Sneed also watches the show a little bit. He likes it as well. Yeah, I think it's pretty good there, Dennis. I think
we're going to have to get Dennis on here one of these days.
I'm sure he would love that. He would definitely come on. He's been on the Rocket Hour before. Here was one somebody threw out. It's not 5, but for the games tonight, Logan Thomas over 45.5 yards. He's got the Giants, Washington under 41, and you got the Giants +5. I haven't seen them anywhere at +5. I'm sure there's different books that have different things. So if you can get them at +5, that's probably what you need. I don't know. You may need more than that, but +5, if you can get them somewhere, that's not bad. I think the big thing about this game is the under 41. I think that's the bet that I would feel most confident in.
Well, let's just start doing scores. Okay.
Yep.
20-17. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
That's 37.
That's right.
To beat the 41, it'd have to be like 27-20. I don't see that.
24-21 is kind of a logical score that would beat it. I don't think they're gonna get there, but that you could see it.
Yeah, I like that one too.
It has like 17-13.
It does
all over it.
It has go to sleep at the half.
Yeah.
Hey, we got what do we got here? We got Ohio and Louisiana in college tonight.
Yeah, you got to
That's
pick
one
for that
I'm-
one.
That's one I'm watching.
You're watching that game tonight.
Well, over this one, sure.
I think they're pretty much both terrible. So, I would. Ohio's pretty bad. Yeah, I'm with Samich. I think Louisiana minus 19. It's 19.5 on this one, but yeah, 19 would be even better. I
agree.
Ohio's been bad. They've been really bad. We do have those Friday games are interesting too.
Yeah,
Central Florida and Louisville.
By the way, you didn't say who was your lock.
Well, the Arizona Cardinals are my lock.
Oh, your lock. Okay. And your upset?
My upset would be BYU.
Oh, yeah. BYU. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I didn't take BYU, Aaron, is I knew you were going to do it for one. But the other reason is I don't like to take the same team 2 weeks in a row as my upset deal. I'm kind of paranoid about that, I guess.
I like to take them 2 weeks in a row when it looks like the exact same setup.
Okay. Just saying, I'm a little superstitious about that, I guess.
Okay. All right. Whatever you say there. Well,
I rooted my ass off for him last week, and I kind of got a little bit tired, so I don't think I want to do that again.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the show today. So hopefully we can get these top fives home. And we're going to keep the running total of our record throughout the year on those. So right now we're at 0-0 as we start that new segment, and every week we'll update that. And since Dennis participated, we'll have Dennis's record on Monday as well.
We will, definitely.
What happens. So guys, it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. We've got great racing with Belmont Churchill back. And they got some great racing. There's great racing at Woodbine. So you got a lot of racing to look at. And obviously with these sports, week 3 of college football is not going to disappoint, I don't think. And then the NFL was crazy in week 1. There are great games. They're hard to predict, but a lot of fun to watch. I think week 2 is going to be more of the same. So, boy, it's the best time of year. We're in full swing right now with these football games, and it's a lot of fun. So, anyway, thank you all for joining us. What time are you picking me up Saturday for the?
Well, I'll be over there about 6, and everybody needs to be thinking about us down there sweating our tails off in that 95-degree heat in Norman, Oklahoma on Saturday.
You got to love the 11 a.m. kicks when you live 3 hours from the stadium. So 6 a.m. we have to leave job.
What are you talking about?
What's that?
You said 3. We're like 5 hours away.
Well, I'm not 5. You might.
Well, you're 4.
No.
Oh, we did find a secret way.
Yeah, there's a new bypass. You can get there in 3 hours and 30 minutes, easy. Okay. I got to Remington Park in 2 hours and 45 minutes last weekend. So.
Yeah, but you drive 100 miles an hour too.
That's true. I was going. I got in trouble a few times for that, but it happens. So anyway, but like I said, guys, have a good time. Good luck if everybody's betting. I'm sure tonight. Good luck with the Thursday night game and all through the weekend. We'll be right back here with you on Monday to recap what we saw. We'll do a little bit of Monday morning action. And then if you like what we're doing on the network here, Magic Mike Show is going to come up next at 5:30 Eastern, and then Blinkers off a little bit after that. So we got a lot going on. But that's it for us. Thanks, everybody, for joining us and commenting. And we'll see you right back here on Monday.